Hi there, BookTube! My name is Christina and today I'm here with a review. And yes, you already guessed, I'm back from work. I was too tired, too lazy. That's the reason why I have this horrible light, but I promise you I will try to do my best and start filming with natural light during weekends. Just because I don't like the way it turns out, so I'm so sorry in advance. But today I'm here to share with you the review of the book that I finished in this month, and I just decided that it's a good idea to leave a review out there since it's a debut novel, since it's a new release of 2019 and I've not seen very much around about this book from the moment when it has been released. So I just want to share with you my thoughts, and the book about which I'm talking is An Affair of Poisons by Eddie Thorley. And I've read this book, or better, I listened to this book, and it was one of the first books to which I listened on Storytel, which is an app that I recently discovered. It's an alternative for Audible, so if you're already using Audible, I don't think that you will need Storytel, or just vice versa. And this is a book to which I listened to, so I have not bought it physically. It was during my 14 days of trial. And I was very glad that I did so, because I actually enjoyed this book. This is a book that I ended up rating like 3.5 stars, so it was in the middle between I liked it and I liked it a lot. And this book is, let's say, a mix of a historical book and just a slight dash of magic. So this is something in between fantasy and historical. So this story is set in France, in Paris precisely, and it is set during the reign of Louis XIV or Louis XIV. So you already have a general idea of what the buildings look like, what people dress like, and of course everything is set at courts, and we are dealing with noblemen and poor population. And this book takes a start from a very interesting point, from something that actually happened in real history, and it was an affair of poisons. And some of the characters in this book are actually real characters, people who really existed. Of course, they're mostly nobles and noblemen about which we hear. They're not our main protagonist, but it's still very interesting, and I discovered quite a bit while reading this book, because while I was reading it I was also searching on the internet for as many information as I could find, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. So as I was telling you, this book starts with an actual really existed character who is La Voisin, and she was a woman who was very well known because of her dark kind of obsessions. She was known for being a poisoner, a fortune teller, a magician, a satanist, and a lot of other horrible stuff. But of course in this book the things that really happened in history, they don't happen. Something different happens in this book, and this is the starting point of the whole story. So in this book, La Voisin is actually able to poison and kill Louis XIV. This means that the history as we know it completely changes. And our book actually follows two different points of view and two main protagonists. We follow a female protagonist who is Mira, and she is the youngest daughter of La Voisin, the famous poisoner, and she is the one that actually produces these poisons. In the book she is called a sort of an alchemist, so she is able to create poisons and curatives, and everything that her mother uses to gain power is actually created by her. And on the other side we follow Jos, who is the bastard of the king, and he has a lot of siblings. He has sisters that he loves to beat, but they are of course nobles. And so we have two different characters and their lives collide at the moment when the king is killed. And our young protagonist, this young girl, she understands that her mother used her and she wasn't aware of the plan that her mother had in mind. And her mother is at the head of this society that is called Shadow Society, that wants to just change everything and get to the power in France. And this is something that they actually managed to do when they kill the king. And this is of course the premise, so don't worry, I'm not spoiling to you anything. And from there the story begins, because our young protagonist, she doesn't want to be part of this plan, she just wanted to help poor people. And on the other side, of course, when the king is killed, a lot of nobles are killed too, so there are riots, and Joss, the male protagonist, tries to escape with his sisters. And of course, at a certain point in the story, their paths collide, and they need to figure out what is right and what is wrong, and which is exactly the point at which they stand. They need to face each other and try to find a common ground of understanding and just figure out how to solve the situation and how to find a proper solution so that the poor and the rich will work together in order to reach the same goal. So it has a historical start, but then it develops in a completely alternate kind of universe version of it. And there is a bit of magic, there is alchemy, so we're following a bit of both, but it's very low fantasy. There are just some elements of magic, so don't worry. If you're too afraid of fantasy, this is not very heavy on that side. It really explores more morality and characters and how the society may evolve when something very important, historically important, happens, and how we may face this kind of situation and what each of us may do to change it. And now let me get to when I tell you what I liked about this book, what I disliked about it. And first of all, as I told you, this story is narrated by two different characters, so we have 2 points of view, a female and a male one, and they're quite distinct, so you're actually able to tell when and who is speaking, because they have a very different way of looking at the world that's around them. So that's something that I really appreciated. And both of them are evolving characters, so they're not static. They start from a certain point, and by the end of the book they have changed, even a little bit, but they have changed. And the things that I definitely liked about this book were, first of all, the setting, because it's a setting that never tires me. I love it, and not enough books are set in this kind of context. I believe that Versailles is such an amazing place in which to set so many books, but they're not enough. Never enough for me. So if you know other books that are set in Versailles or France, Paris, and this kind of historical setting, then please let me know, because I'm a sucker for those. Yeah, I have to admit it. One more thing that I really enjoyed is the fact that the book really analyzes how the same fact, seen from two different points of view, may seem completely different according to what experience each of the observing people has had in the past. So this again is something that I appreciated in this debut novel. It wasn't flawless, of course, but it was still lovely to see the effort that the author made to analyze this kind of situation. The third plus is that it's a standalone, and there are not enough standalones out there, and it's kind of fantasy and it's a standalone, and the story finishes there. That's it, and that's just amazing. Fourth is the good rhythm and pacing of the book. It wasn't too slow, it wasn't too fast, there was quite a bit of action. The moments of peace, let's call them like that, were always useful to start a new moment of action, so I very much enjoyed that. And the last point is that the author isn't afraid to kill people, characters in this case, of course. So This again is something that I appreciate when an author actually take a risk and show to you the real consequences of a riot, conflict or a war, so again, a plus for me. And now let's get to the parts that I've not enjoyed that much. First of all, unfortunately, the male voice in the audiobook. I liked the female voice, but the male voice wasn't for me. And I know that it's deeply personal because it deals with how you perceive a voice and what kind of emotions it starts to just provoke in you, I don't know. And for me, I disliked that voice. I don't think that the narrator was bad, but I've not enjoyed it, unfortunately. But that's personal, this has nothing to do with the content of the book, of course. My second cons is that the main female character was trying to be too naive to be believable, and this may sound strange, but the premise at the beginning of the book, she creates poisons and venoms for her mother. And when her mother actually kills someone, she goes for all of the book like, you betrayed me, I was trusting you, I didn't think that you will use this poison that way, or that you will kill that specific person. And I was like, yeah, but you create poison. What you thought she will do with this poison exactly? Like decorate her rooms? No, of course not. So what are we even talking about? And yeah, for some reason she was just mesmerized by that. Like, oh, why? She used the poison to poison someone. Well, that's in the name, I believe. So yeah, that was something that pissed me just a little bit. And the third thing that kind of left me unsatisfied was the lack of resolutions. When there was a conflict, like a verbal conflict or an emotional conflict between some characters, there never was a real deep solution. So the story itself, of course, ends in a certain way and you have a development and a conclusion. But the small relationships between characters, they really just were left there in the air. Like, not one fight, verbal fight, not one, I don't know, argument was actually solved for real. Like, every character had something else in mind that they were able to say but never said. And on the other side, there was a character that really wanted to react in a certain way but never reacted. So it's strange, and if I was one of the main protagonists of the story, I would like scream and fight and I don't know. And there were moments in which it was quite anticlimactic for this reason, because I really waited for a real resolution and conflict, emotional conflict, but it never arrived. And the other thing that didn't make me a huge fan was the insta-love. There is an insta-love. And even if the characters that fall in love are kinda cute together, maybe, it really felt very, very forced, because while I was reading this book, I really didn't feel any need for a romance in that book. It was full packed with action and tension and historical events and huge personalities, so it was already very rich of content, and the romance, I really perceived it as it's there just for the sake of it. Just because, why not? Every book needs a romance. No, that's not true. This is an example of a book that I believe is perfectly fine, even more than fine, without a romance. But there is one, unfortunately. So yeah, this is everything that I had to tell you about this book. I know that this video probably is very long, but since I've not seen enough reviews about it, I just really wanted to share with you my thoughts, and no one that I know has read it, so I just need to share my thoughts with someone. I hope that you enjoyed this strange long review, and there are more to come because I'm reading quite a bit this year and I'm so happy about it, and I have some reviews. I will just try to alternate them with other content and other videos, just because I know that reviews are not so well loved here on BookTube. So I will reduce the number or just like sprinkle them here and there when I have time. And I hope to see you very, very soon in my next video with a natural lighting. Finger crossed. And for now, bye! Ciao!